Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Well and Ground podcast. My name's Emily and I'm a yoga teacher and I'm also a mom, and I'm truly in love with people and their stories. I'm really drawn to wellness, movement, and the everyday things that kind of keep us grounded. So on this podcast, you'll find that I will talk with moms, creatives, and wellness professionals about life and also about growth. So let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Emily, and today's episode is great for anyone gardening here in the Lake Norman area, especially if you're growing in zones 7B or 8A. Today, I sat down with a local garden consultant, Allison, from the Blue Family Farm Table to talk about what gardeners should be focusing on right now. So if you've been wondering what to plant or what to stop worrying about, how to make the most of the garden this season, this episode is the one that you don't want to miss. And if you're watching on YouTube, stick around until the very end because Allison takes us on a quick garden tour so you can see what's currently in her garden right now. So let's dig in. I am so excited for our next guest on the podcast. So today I have Allison, and I'll kind of let her give herself a little bio. This podcast is also on YouTube or on Spotify. The video's up there too. So if you're hanging out with us seeing the video, we might actually do some garden touring tonight. So if you can maybe listen and come back and watch the video, that would be really exciting. But me and Allison, we actually met. I feel like this was another part of my life that I forgot was part of my life. My husband and I owned the Bradford Market about a year, and that's how I connected with Allison. After I had my daughter, I stepped down. I went into more of the yoga world, and now I'm back into homesteading and gardening, and we've kind of crossed paths for mutual passions. Once I saw that you started actively doing some garden consulting, I was like, I got to have her on the podcast. So
Oh, thanks.
all of your secrets. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a blessing getting to know you and watching your babies grow and come. That's been fun. I've loved watching your motherhood grow. But I am Allison and I own the Blue Family Farm Table. The Blue Family Farm Table has been a lot of things over the years as it's evolved, as I've grown as a mom and my family has grown and changed. I am a true and tried Huntersville girl, raised here in Huntersville. We moved here when I was 8. I've been connected to Huntersville my entire childhood and have been digging in this dirt in Mecklenburg County since I was a kid with my mom, visiting a lot of the same garden centers I go to today and take my own kids to. And I just have a huge attachment to growing in this community. Over the years, the Blue Family Farm Table has done everything from refurnishing antiques and doing outdoor planters. I did my very first Southern Christmas show 10 years ago with the people who used to own Elements for Life in Huntersville, and I did outdoor. I built my own wooden garden boxes and hauled them in a wagon to the Southern Christmas show and sold them with Christmas cactuses in them about 10 years ago when I left the dental field to start my gardening dream and stay home and raise my kiddos. So yeah, here we are 10 years later.
There are so many different things I did not know about you.
I've done so much, girl. Anything to do with plants that could be flexible around my kids, I've done it. I've worked for Metrolina. I worked for you at the Bradford Market, so I've done organic veggies. I've worked for a succulent designer in Charlotte for 3 years under her when I was training. So yeah, I've kind of been all over the place for a long time.
I first met you was your succulent pumpkins, right?
Yes, that was probably the first time that I ever figured out that my passion for gardening could also be a business. Prior to that, I was doing succulent design art as a creative outlet and always looking for ways to bring income in while I could stay at home with the boys when they were little and while they were in school. And succulent design just became something that was almost as passionate about growing food as because it was a whole new world for me to learn in. So my succulent pumpkins are pretty awesome. It's a fun adventure. I look forward to it every year.
I want to circle back to that topic for sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, we are, so you're beautiful. I see some zinnias maybe behind you.
Those are my bee balm. I set her there just on purpose. So that is a Monarda. That is a bee balm I always like to promote. We plant natives and pollinator friendly plants in the yard because who doesn't love watching butterflies and hummingbirds fly around, right? And you just feel blessed when they fly by.
So what is currently in your garden right now? So what are you growing this season?
So I grow a little bit of everything. We're lucky enough that I've got an acre and a half and it's an old farm property. So I have got really huge mature trees, like you can see in the background if you're watching on the video. I have a lot of shady areas in my yard, and I also have about a half full acre of sun in the back in front of our barn, which is where I grow most of my food.
Right.
That takes different spaces. I do raised bed gardening, I do in ground gardening, I do container gardening, all of the above. I have everything from perennial shade gardens in the front that I've been able to watch evolve and add to over 10 years. And my food growing area is in the back. It's probably about a quarter of an acre right now that's actually planted. I have different areas: food production, tomatoes and green beans and eggplants and all the herbs, and then perennial flowers. And I did start a new native garden this year. So I have quite a few different little gardens, always starting something new.
What are you most excited about this year?
Tomatoes. Tomatoes make me excited about everything. I am a gardener because of my addiction to tomatoes. I lived in Sicily for almost 4 years, and my oldest son was born there. I lived in Sicily. My husband was a meteorologist for the Navy, so we were overseas. I fell in love with the Mediterranean climate and lived in the middle of a blood orange and olive grove. It increased my love for tomatoes beyond measure. We put in 40 tomatoes in the ground on Mother's Day this year.
There a certain tomato type that you love?
I love to can. I've kind of grown into, especially with 2 hungry teenage boys in the house, and there's just something so satisfying about eating the taste of a summer tomato in the dead of winter. So
Yeah.
grow half of my crop is always a cannibal paste tomato, either an Amish paste or a Roma, a San Marzano, one of the ones that is gonna dice and preserve really well, that's not super juicy and seedy. And then, of course, I have all the good tomato sandwich tomatoes. I grow Cherokee purples and mortgage lifters and all of the Southern heirlooms. I've got a fun one from Mike with Green Thumb Gardens. You remember from the market. Mike, yeah, he grows the best plant starts. So every year I get a couple of
Oh,
his to get things started. And I'm growing one of his Jolene tomatoes this year. And I'm so stoked to have a tomato named Jolene. Yeah,
I love that.
I do too.
Um, okay, so you have a lot going on this year. We're in June recording. What's the date
Yes,
today? We are June 16th.
June
Is there
16th.
anything that having any challenges so far this year that you've noticed?
Oh my gosh, I picked it today just to be able to tell you about it. And my mom and I were just talking about it this morning. Squash bugs, they've come, they're here. I don't know if any of our gardeners are familiar with trying to grow zucchini and squash in your garden. It's one of the most talked about produces that we always take for granted because it's so plentiful. And here in our zone in North Carolina, we go in between a zone 7B and a zone 8A where we are here in Huntersville, which all that zone means is it tells us when our frost date comes and goes. That's all it does. So it doesn't tell highs and lows. It basically tells you how cold you're going to get and how hot you're going to get within 1 year, but not specific dates. In our zone, I would say the biggest pest is squash bugs. So it's really hard to grow pumpkins here. It's really hard to go squash. I'm looking under the leaves for signs of little copper eggs.
Yep.
So I would say I found my first squash bug eggs. I'll show you. I actually saved one. So if you're watching on the video here, I
Yeah.
harvested a squash bug today. And this is just on a regular garden zucchini, and you see those little copper eggs. So you can take these and squish these in your garden. I try to mulch around the base of my squash plants because the
Okay.
bugs, it makes them uncomfortable. But that's probably one of my biggest garden tips for new gardeners is don't grow squash or zucchini in our zone because you're going to feel like a failure because they're going to come, they're going to find your yard. If they don't the first year, they will the second. And squash and zucchini is really cheap to buy at the farmer's market. So buy your squash and zucchini and grow something that you love because it will frustrate you. June brings the bugs, and I will say that's the most frustrating thing. June brings the bugs, and of course, I don't spray anything. I try to go all as organic as I can, and if it succumbs to bugs, then I kind of chalk that one up for the team. I would definitely say June is challenging because the pests start to show up, and that's when it starts to you start to feel like your hard work is you're going backwards a little bit. My biggest advice for a gardener of any kind is the more you're in the garden, the better your garden is going to grow. And that's because you're noticing things, you're seeing things, you're saying that squash plant looks different different than it did yesterday. They're actually squash vine borers, so it's a bug that actually buries into the a squash vine grows like in a hollow tube, and so the bug actually eats through, usually right at the base of the plant where it's the dirt, and it eats a hole and gets inside the vine of the squash and then basically kills your plant from the inside out. So you go out there one day and it's just completely gone. I usually take a cup of soapy water, Dawn dish soap, and this works for Japanese beetles. You can take a cup of Dawn dish soap out to the garden with you, just soapy water. And when you drop the bugs in the water, they can't fly out because of the gel on the soap around their wings. And so it traps them until you can safely get rid of them. Some people go as far as to, I've heard, the little battery charged car vacuums. You can take a little car vacuum out to the garden. So if you've got a plant that's covered in little moths or pests, and vacuum them up. My biggest pest control is just keeping your eyeballs on your plants and seeing what's going on. That's going to be rule number one.
Talking about bugs and pests, besides keeping eyes on our garden, beside looking out for pests, what are some other things that we can be doing right now in June?
In June, I really like to think about succession planting. And all that means is that excitement and the newness that you got when you first planted your garden. A lot of us started as early as April. I have a rule,
Mhm.
I don't plant my hot or my hot things until Mother's Day because it's a tradition I always did with my grandma. And so I do it with my
Oh,
kids now. That's our big summer planting day. That's when it's safe in our zone that those hot loving things, our soil temperature is safe enough for those, but lots of earlier things we can get started early. But that same excitement that you have at the beginning of the season starts to peter out
mhm.
in June and July. And we have some crops like cucumbers that they're only going to be great for about 6 weeks. You're going to go 2 more months of summer with tomatoes still coming on, and you've got no cucumbers to go with them. So in June, I'm focusing on making sure those crops that I know are going to be able to grow within the growing window that we have left, which is still a good 3 months of weather. I can still get a whole nother round or two of green beans, a whole nother round or two of sunflowers that I'm going to be able to cut for my fall table. So if I just continue
Okay.
to let my garden grow right now with everything I planted, a lot of those things
Yeah.
are going to be pittered out in a couple weeks. So succession planting is something I'm really focusing on in June. I've put more sunflower seeds in the ground. I've started more green beans in little containers. I'm doing a lot of seed starting this year in containers because we've been so dry. And it's
Ah,
been really helpful to start stuff in your driveway because you can control the moisture to get them germinated and then go pop those green beans once they've sprouted, go pop them in the garden. And then you're not as frustrated when those seeds don't come up. So, my succession planning, I do a lot of seed starting because it's cheap. And the nurseries you're starting to see, all their vegetables are looking horrible and haggard right now because they get that first influx in. Go grab yourself a pack of sunflower seeds and plant them now. So in 2 more weeks, when that garden's frustrating, you're really excited about something again. That'll keep you going through the summer.
okay. Now, question for sunflowers: where are they best planted? Like,
I have the luxury of space. If you're doing a sunflower in a raised garden bed and you still want
yeah.
those sunflowers, my best bet to you is to make sure that you're growing sunflowers that are adapted for containers. So you're growing a dwarf version because you're not going to take up a prized food growing space. You're still going to get the
Mhm.
pollinator, you're still going to get the beautiful blooms, but you're growing something appropriate for the area that you're growing it in. I have a huge
Yeah.
in-ground space in the middle of my garden that was my very first in-ground bed that I put in 10 years ago when we bought this property, and I've
Yeah.
built little beds all around it, so it's hard to get to the center to harvest things now, so that's become
Okay.
my flower bed in the center of my in-ground garden, and that's where I put all my sunflowers every year. I have to start most of my sunflowers in little pots in the driveway because I have squirrels, and squirrels eat all of my sunflowers. So I start them and then transplant them out into the garden.
I probably need to start doing that, but
Yep.
they sprout, they get eaten or
The top gets
damaged.
eaten off. Yep, my daddy always grew an entire bed of sunflowers for me every year since I was a little girl. He lived in Wrightsville Beach, and I would go in the summers and visit, and I would sit in the hammock every summer of my childhood and look at an entire patch of sunflowers that he would plant along the water for me. He
Mhm.
passed away 5 years ago, and this is the first year I've been able to plant another big sunflower bed again because it's kind of a sentimental thing. He used to save all of his 7 Up bottles over the whole year, and he would cut the top of his 7 Up bottles off, and when the sunflowers would sprout, he would take the clear little plastic with the bottle top off and put it over the sunflower shoot until it got its second set of full leaves, and then he would remove the little plastic piece, and then it was sturdy enough that the birds would leave it alone. That's always a trick too. You can take a little cloche, just a recyclable plastic bottle. A lot of people for bigger plants will use the Dollar Tree wire mesh trash cans. You can take a trash can and flip it over a plant if you're having a critter that's nibbling on it and you want to protect it, because then the sunlight comes straight through.
Think about that because I planted them, and this is my third time I'm getting like, should I even plant anymore? But you're
I know. That's why I've started them. I'm telling you, girl, just start them in a
right.
little seed tray in the driveway, get them an inch or two tall, and then pop them in the garden. And
Yeah.
that way you're not as frustrated. Yeah. Yeah. Make sure, especially right now, we're watering. It's so dry. It's so dry. Watering, but not overwatering as well, because what we're doing when we overwater is we're not establishing those roots so that those roots grow well enough to where they search for the water on their own. That's a mix and balance of being in your garden and watching it and seeing how they're going. But I'm sure you know nothing is as good as a good rain. It looks
I love
amazing
it, right.
after a good rain.
That's stuff I can't do. Like, I'm like,
Yeah, I can fertilize and water all day long, and we just can't make the magic that the earth does.
now, what is the best time of day to water?
Honestly, the best time of the day to water is when you remember to water and when you get out there and do it. If super specific and really picky about exactly how we want to do things, the one time not to water is in the middle heat of the day. Because in the
Okay.
middle heat of the day, number one, your water is just evaporating straight out into that 90-degree air. It's
Uh,
leaving a watery sheen and it makes it more susceptible to sunburn. The water glow on a plant, a leaf does the exact same thing. So it will actually intensify the sun's heat and possibly burn it. If you're watering at ground level with like a soaker hose or something where it's not splashing onto the leaves, you can water anytime. I hand water. And so I usually water in the morning with a cup of coffee in my bathroom. And sometimes if
Right.
it's been a busy morning or I get out early, it's in my pajamas at night with a cup of tea. So usually those are the 2 times you catch me watering. Yeah.
I found my outfits when I go check on the garden with my coffee. It, it is
My oldest son this morning, or it was sometime this weekend, I had my plaid pajama pants on and I had thrown my husband's flannel on and buttoned it up. And he was like, "Oh, plaid on plaid today. The birds are gonna like that." And I was like, "Yep, rocking it." Love it.
so besides maybe watering at the wrong time, is there any other mistakes that are common that could be happening right now in June for people?
I saw a garden friend. I call my garden consult customers my garden friends because
Oh,
that's really what all of us plant people are, just garden friends. I was at patience. Those little baby tomatoes are on there, and you're just wondering why it's not growing. I'm constantly taking in content with garden tips and topics and having garden envy. Why aren't my eggplants that big? And so I think
yeah.
we get ahead of ourselves rather than stopping and truly enjoying the process. And something that has helped me for years, there's a couple little sayings I have all throughout gardening and floral design, but one of them is you got to remember plants sleep, creep, and then they leap. And perennials do that. So a perennial is one that you put in the garden and it's going to come back every year, whether it stays green all year round or it dies back and then comes back the next season. The first year that you plant that plant, it's gonna sleep. It's never gonna look like it did when you bought it in the nursery again for the next 3 years, because it's gonna sleep that first year. The next year, it's gonna creep, which means those roots are gonna start underground and start trying to establish themselves. And then that 3rd year, it's gonna go through its leap, which is where it's gonna return to looking like that plant that you bought in the nursery with all the blooms everywhere. So your vegetable garden works the exact same way, and your annuals work the same way, just in a smaller time frame. So when you first bring that plant home or you first plant that seed, it's sleeping. It's trying to reserve all of its energy so that it can do whatever its life purpose is, which for all plants is to produce a seed and continue life. So it's sleeping, whether it's a seed in the ground or it's just tucked into your soil as a new starter plant, it's sleeping. And then it's going to start creeping. So it's growing even though you don't think that plant's doing anything. We're looking at that tomato plant we put in 2 weeks ago and we're like, like it doesn't have tomatoes yet. It's creeping. It's doing all of this work under the soil that you're not seeing. It's expending all of this energy. And then in about 4 weeks after it's been in the ground, whatever its growing pattern is, then you're going to see that leap. So I think June is definitely a month of practicing patience because July is going to come and those harvest baskets are going to be full. So just patience. Yeah.
On top of that topic, so maybe having some patience, is there anything else we should stop doing or stop worrying about in June?
Definitely some crops that we can give up on right now. Radishes right now. They don't like the heat. It's not going to happen. We're going to give up on peas right now. We're not going to visit peas again until the fall.
Okay.
Any of your broccoli, cauliflower, any of those cold loving, none of those are even your cilantro. This is a great summer tip because everybody loves cilantro in their salsa. Well, you've got tomatoes in the garden, you've got peppers in the garden, you've got all the things to make salsa. Well, every time you plant cilantro, it bolts, which means it goes to flower and immediately, which grows great coriander seed. So make sure you let some of your cilantros go to flower because they make the most best pollinator flowers and you can save the seeds after. But
Okay.
you can't ever get fresh cilantro in the heat of summer to go with your salsa. So
Yep.
don't try to grow those things that just aren't going to thrive in our zone. Try to find alternatives. So instead of growing cilantro all season long, there is a plant called culantro, and it's Culantro. Is completely drought tolerant, crazy heat hardy, and it grows all throughout the summer. It almost has an aloe texture. You
Okay.
chop it up really fine. It tastes exactly like cilantro. Exactly. You will never know the difference. So, finding those things that aren't working in the garden right now, your cucumbers are too hot, rip them out. Don't waste your time and energy on that. You can plant a new cucumber seed and have more cucumbers in 4 more weeks. So, I think June is also taking evaluation of, am I going to want more tomatoes? Am I going to want more cucumbers? Am I going to want more green beans? Do I want to make sure I have fall flowers? So it's also a month of taking a evaluation and planning a little bit ahead as well.
Okay, that's really good advice. If someone hasn't started at all, is there still time?
1000%, 1000%. I swear by green beans because green beans are a telltale veggie to grow. Green beans are a great way to tell soil health. If you're just getting started,
Mm.
get your soil mixed together the way you want to and plant 4 or 5 green beans. Just go get yourself a dollar pack of green bean seeds and stick yourself a couple green beans in the ground. They'll germinate in 3 to 4 days. Water them, keep them watered well. When they germinate and they turn green, you're going to have a new set of leaves and green beans within a week and a half. If that plant after a week, week and a half starts to turn yellow and fall over and die on you, there's something wrong with your soil. Do not even try to plant veggies in that soil until you figure out what's going on with it. So that is probably one of my first tips for new gardeners is make sure your soil is good before you put anything in it because if you're
Yeah.
starting with bad soil or soil that's not gonna thrive, then it doesn't
Okay.
matter what you plant in it, it's not gonna grow well.
Really good.
That's probably my biggest tip is find where you wanna grow. Make
Yeah.
sure it's gonna have the appropriate amount of light for what
Yeah.
you're looking to grow. A
Mm.
vegetable garden that's gonna produce tomatoes and green beans and peppers needs at least 8 hours of full sun a day. In my yard, that was hard to find, so you have to watch the sun patterns. That's probably the biggest starting step is see where your light is, depending on what if you're looking to grow something that's shadier, that likes it cooler, if we're talking about flowers and things, then you're gonna need to find a spot that acclimates to that. Finding the right spot for what you wanna grow is number 1, and then number 2 is making sure you got the right soil.
Okay. Perfect. Now, so some of the things right now for June, if they have not started, can you plant both seeds and starts? I mean, right now?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of my favorite tips for starts right now is I
Mm.
guarantee you if you're looking to start a garden, you've got a friend that's gardening. If you
Yeah.
don't, most of your garden friends are going to have suckers on their tomatoes, which means that they've got those little spikes that are growing out of the armpits of their tomatoes that they want to pinch off because it's going to be stealing all of the energy from their tomato plants. You can take that sucker and throw it in a jar of water and it'll have roots in a couple days. And then you've given a tomato plant to a friend who is just now wanting to grow tomatoes. So that's a great summer tip is to know a friend who's gardening. because it's a little late to start tomatoes and peppers from seed right now. But green
Yep.
beans from seed, 100%. Cucumbers from seed right now. Sunflowers, zinnias. You will feel like the best gardener in the world if you throw yourself a pack of zinnias out in some dirt or in a container right now, because you're going to be able to cut off those beauties all season long and bring them in. So there's plenty of time to do starts. And I would avoid putting perennials and shrubbery and fruit trees in the ground right now because it's too hot and they're going to really struggle unless you've got an area that you can baby them and be really attentive. Just be weary of planting permanent shrubbery and things like that in the heat of the summer because they do struggle. The best time to plant those is early spring or early fall. Fruit trees and berry bushes right now because they're going to struggle.
Is there anything we can do right now, given the heat of the summer, to keep our plants healthy?
Mulch. I
Okay.
swear by mulch. Mulch is good for numerous reasons. Number one, it's constantly improving your soil health without you doing anything. Mother Nature, if you look in Mother Nature, bare soil rarely exists. And if it does exist, it's usually in a very unhealthy environment. So it's not natural in nature, which I try to mimic when I'm gardening because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a natural process happen.
Yeah.
So I try to never leave uncovered soil. So whether you're using chopped up leaves, whether you go and order from the pet store a bag of chips, chopped up wood chips, if you're using chopped up hay, leaves are one of the best mulch ever. I get chips from my local arborist for free. There's a website called chipdrop.com, and you put your address in, and local arborists get charged when they have to go and dump their wood chips. And you can make a selection that you don't want pine trees or you only want hardwoods in your chips. And I've done it twice this year already, and within the week I had an entire truckload of wood chips in my backyard for free. So mulch, and what that does is it retains the moisture. It's holding that moisture in the soil, which is so important in the heat of the summer. It's
Mm.
giving an obstruction for critters that they have to crawl over to get to your actual plant. So even though it's not crazy pest control, it does help with pest management, and it helps with weeding. Nobody wants to be out there in 95 degrees pulling weeds. It's hard enough to get out there and water right now. So help yourself and mulch everything. Mulch, mulch every season.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I actually have to do that. That's the one thing I haven't done. I'm like, why haven't I
It's
done this?
it's a pain when you do it, and then you think to yourself, I will beg everybody when you can in your garden, please don't use a treated bagged mulch. You can find
Okay.
natural bagged mulches, but the dyed mulches and things like that have a sterility to them. And so it's basically putting a sterile object into your garden soil and then expecting your soil, which is a living thing, to accept that. And so it really isn't helping along the way. So when you're mulching in your vegetable garden and your flower gardens, especially, I really like to use some sort of mulch that has some livingness to it. So whether that be a natural hardwood mulch in a bag, leaves, wood shavings, even alfalfa, whatever it is, dried grasses work great, but try to use something natural. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Now, before we talk about fall planting, I do want to circle back to the soil. Do you
Okay.
want to talk about soil
I
health?
do, and I've been gardening for so many years now. I've finally learned you can't grow anything without having good dirt. You just can't. And
Yeah.
your soil, once we start looking at our soil as an active living thing, we're going to be
Mm,
better gardeners. So,
mm,
just anything we can do to encourage that natural life. I'm an organic gardener and I don't use synthetic fertilizers and things. I'm a huge believer in fish fertilizer. I use a lot of seaweed based fertilizers. I use natural soils. I try to, when I do bring dirt into my garden, whether it be from a compost place, I try to make sure I know that I'm getting it from a reputable spot. And your black cow in Home Depot is going to be just fine. Going and adding a bag of raised bed garden mix straight into a container and growing an entire season worth of a vegetable or a fruit out of that soil is not going to contain enough nutrients to support a full life cycle of that plant. So
yeah.
just making sure we're adding either a mushroom compost to our mixture. One of my biggest tricks when I'm planting is I keep a giant 18-gallon tub flipped over in my garden.
Right.
At any time, I'll add a bag of compost, a half used bag of organic potting mix, a half bag of peat moss, a little bit of mulch, and I'm constantly mixing that up and top dressing beds. Before, mix things up a little bit, get a couple layers of different things, whether it be a compost, a raised bed mix, a soil conditioner, layer with natural. I use cardboard on the base a lot of times if I'm starting an in-ground or a raised bed because it's going to break down beautifully and it attracts earthworms. Cardboard attracts earthworms. They eat the tiny little sugars that the cardboard puts off. If you take all the tape off, there's really nothing bad in cardboard. It's just putting back to the soil and it's a great weed suppression. Imagine your soil like a lasagna. So you want to layer it. So you want to have layers of different natural things that are green, that are brown, that are black over time that are going to break down. But when you're just starting, at least get 3 different kinds of a soil mixture to mix so that you're giving your soil a good start to have a vibrant, healthy life.
Let's maybe jump into fall planting.
Okay.
How does that work when we have plants already? How does that process
So
work?
what that does is you're determining what you've got in your garden. So we know, like my tomatoes, there's 2 different types of tomatoes. You have one that's called a determinate and one that's called an indeterminate. I know my Roma tomatoes and my San Marzanos are a determinate tomato. That means they're going to grow one set of fruit. They're going to put that set of fruit on within about 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to all come on within a short period of time. I'm going to be able to harvest it all and then those plants are going to be done. So I know in about a month and a half, when those have all petered out, I'm going to have that garden space wide open. So that's going to be the first place that I go to succession plant some fall things. I've got 6 more weeks of that cucumber. So what can go in that cucumber's place? Thinking about the life cycle of the plants that you already have for your summer garden and maybe thinking of this is going to be done, what space is going to be freed open first and then deciding whether or not you want to try seed starting for fall or not. Don't worry about seed starting over the summer. Go to a local nursery and buy your fall starts when you're ready. They'll put them out earlier than you need to, so don't worry, they'll be there. But if you do want to start some stuff from seed for the fall, like your brassicas, like cauliflower and broccoli, cabbages, that take a really long time to grow, we're going to want to start those in July. And then you're going to want to start those inside in July so that we can move those out into the garden in late August and miss that pest window and still have the warmth to get them growing, to go into fall, to have enough energy for the winter, but still miss that window of heavy pests in the summer. So we're going to be thinking about planting those things in July.
Gosh, that's so weird to think about
Isn't
planting
it?
broccoli.
Yeah, in
Oh,
July. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
My husband and I start tomatoes and peppers. My husband loves hot, spicy peppers. He'll let me do anything in the garden if I grow a bed of hot peppers. So I grow habaneros. I hate spicy things. So I grow those just for him and he makes salsas. I start those peppers and those tomatoes. We always do it on Valentine's Day. So we start our summer garden dreaming of it in January and planting those seeds in February. Yeah.
That's so fun. Yeah, because when you think of gardening, you think April to then, but there's a lot of planning that goes into it.
Only if you want it to be. It's only if you want it to be. If you literally just want a couple of those, I always have to remind myself not everybody is as obsessive about it as I am. And I wish everybody even just grew one time, put a blueberry bush in and saw what it was like when your kids pick their blueberries to put on their waffle in the morning because it just makes you look at growing food and gardening in a whole different way. I do wish everybody grew food. You can put one tomato plant in a pot on your patio or your balcony in your apartment and you're making a difference. You are growing a tomato. You are teaching yourself and the people around you where our food comes from, which I think ultimately is the goal.
I get so excited talking about gardening that I want to go in the weeds. But what are some small space stuff that people can do if they are new beginner
I
gardener?
love container gardening. I mean, container gardening is so fun, and you can grow herbs are the most perfect way to a gateway into gardening. If anybody has gone to your Whole Foods or anywhere lately and seen a pack of organic basil, a tiny little plastic pack of organic basil is like $5.99. It's insane. I literally harvested probably 3 cups of basil last night, and that one basil plant is going to be producing for me all summer long. I think herbs are a great gateway into gardening because you can grow a ton in one container and that tiny taste of freshness that little bit of fresh basil on your every weeknight spaghetti makes it so
Mhm.
much more special. Those fresh chives on a baked potato that you eat every week makes it so much more special. When those chives bloom, you can eat those little purple flowers on your salad and impress your dinner guests. You can go a long way with a tiny pot of herbs. A tiny pot of herbs is a perfect way to get started and get you excited about using what's in your garden in your cooking. Yeah.
That's perfect. I love that. Okay, so beginner gardening, if they're gonna do it for the first time, herbs. Another one I'd probably recommend is lettuce when it's the time for
Lettuce is
lettuce.
great. Once we get into fall, lettuce is so easy
Yeah.
to grow. And I will tell you a trick with lettuce. One thing I find that my garden friends are frustrated with all the time is getting a packet of lettuce to germinate. One of the biggest mistakes we make as gardeners is we plant our seeds too deep. Okay. So I find that all the time, or we have bad germination and we blame it. We think it's ourselves or something's wrong. And it's we're planting
Correct.
lettuce seeds are teeny, 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 tiny. So when you're planting lettuce seeds, that literally means having your pot of soil ready or whatever container you're growing them in, sprinkling your lettuce seeds on top of that soil, and literally taking your hand and barely just patting it down comes in contact with the soil. And then watering from the bottom. Bottom watering does when people are doing containers is it keeps you, if you're starting with seeds, especially if you're trying to grow veggies in a pot. If you're starting with seeds and you're hitting it with a hose sprayer and that shower, you're moving those seeds around as they're trying so hard to germinate and put their little roots and tiny root hairs down. If you take that pot and you put it in a cookie sheet full of water, just anything, old cafeteria tray or a bucket lid that has water standing in it, and you put your container on that, it's going to soak that water up from the bottom. So, my first tip is to start with moist soil. Make sure your soil is moist when you start. When you're potting things up, put your potting mix into that big Tupperware bin, wet it down a little bit so you're planting in moist soil to get those seeds off to the best start until you have germination, bottom watering, putting that container in something to soak up the water from the bottom to maintain the
Mhm.
moisture. So you're giving those seeds the best environment to germinate in warm and moist soil that's not moved around. So
Yes.
start some lettuce, get some wet dirt, stick it in a pot, sprinkle some lettuce seeds on the top. Basil works really well that way. Sprinkle it on top, barely touch it with your hand. Put it in your kitchen window sill, leave it in a dish so it can soak up water from the bottom, and you're going to have sprouts in a couple days and be amazed. And then you can transplant those straight outside.
Perfect. Yay. Well, awesome. I think we kind of hit a bunch of tips all at once,
Yay.
which kind of
Yay.
goes into topic because I kind of want to talk about you offer your knowledge to people as like a thing, right?
I do. I do. I could talk about this for days. This year, I've been gardening for over 20 years, more than that. I was literally walking the compost bucket out with my grandma when I was 6 years old in the tomato patch. So I've always gardened. I've always just been obsessed with growing food. The fact that we can go outside and pick. I love to cook. I have two teenage boys who love to eat. I've learned a lot, mostly by failure. You fail a lot when you garden. I have had more plants die on me than I have harvest. I have learned over 20 years of gardening, specifically in our area, which is hard and very specialized. We have clay. I know our weather patterns. I know what pests we have here. So it's a knowledge that's done from practice over time. I finally felt confident enough this year, and my oldest went off to college. So I have one that's in college, and I have one that's going to be a rising junior in high school. I have a lot more free time on my hands than I did when they were younger and I was at sports things all of the time. My favorite thing to do is to help families learn how to grow food or to learn how to beautify their yards. Your yard is an extension of your home. Watching your children, I was lucky enough to raise my children in a big yard where we grew lots of stuff. And you watch these things grow along with your kids, and there's a learning opportunity every moment with kids in the yard. And so that's become my passion. So basically, I charge a one time consult fee. I do a flat $30, and this is for locals, but I do a $30 1 hour consult fee. And it's I come out to your space, we look at your space, you tell me, what are we growing? We're growing fruit, we're growing flowers. What is it that we're looking for your family? And I look and kind of see what your sun patterns are and what we have existing there. I walk away and I did one today. I create a little pattern. So I take notes while I'm at the property and I have my notebook, and the entire time we're talking, I'm taking notes and I sketch out your space, whether it's a raised bed and you're wanting to start veggies or it's an already existing flower bed. We talk about plants while we're there, what's going to work, what's not. It's a lot of information to take in. So I come home and I take all of those notes and I put them together for you. I still like to draw garden designs. So you'll get a paper garden design from me, usually with a little flower from my garden, something to plant in yours. I do the work. I plant gardens. I don't do landscape work anymore. I'm too old. My back hurts. So I don't do the moving the heavy rocks, but I get the raised beds ready. I prepare the soil and I just charge a simple $25 an hour to come out and either work alongside you and teach you, which is my favorite way to do it because we're doing it together. So you're learning. So the next time you do it, you don't have to call me. That's my whole purpose, is to empower everyone else so that they know the things that I know so they can grow their own food. Basically, that's it. You're welcome to text. Once you're my garden friend, you're my garden friend, and you've got my cell phone number. I have garden customers all the time that snap a picture or something and say, "What's wrong with this?" and text it to me. I take their kids flowers when I go visit the gardens, and I get eggs from their chickens. Once you're my garden friend, you're my garden friend. You can find me on Instagram or on Facebook. I think my phone number is on both of those places. You can send me a message on there, but locally, I'm really easy to get in touch with and a pretty flexible schedule. So we just set up a time and I'll come out and see your space. If it's not something that you can schedule an in person or you don't want to, I'll be happy to set up a FaceTime video call with you and you walk me around your yard and we'll talk like you and I are talking now.
Cool.
Occasionally, if you need muscle, I bring my 2 boys along with me. They're good for hauling mulch. Yeah. So poor college kid needs to be paid.
Before we jump to the rapid fire garden consults, who is your ideal client there? Who can get a golden start? Beginner gardeners all the way up to people that just want some
All the
extra.
anybody and everybody. I love learning from fellow gardeners, so I love throwing ideas off of what would you put here in this soil in this space. From the professional side of it, I am constantly learning. But probably my favorite is families that are wanting to learn how to grow food, who have littles that are so excited about when they get to pick that first strawberry. I just put blueberry bushes in at my niece and nephew's house this year and installed some garden towers on their decks because they're a very busy young family so that we could get them growing food in an accessible space without it being in ground and raised beds. So we have those options too. That's what we'll figure out during a consult, is how you can grow food and where in your space. It's been the most fun taking them out there on Saturday mornings and picking blueberries. And it's very empowering to learn how to grow food and preserve it and use it in your kitchen and know that your children are being fed something that you know what was in it. It's very empowering. I always say, let's start a revolution of growing tomatoes. So that's probably my favorite, is anybody who wants to learn and loves nature. But I do love helping families get started and making it accessible for families, whether they live in a neighborhood or in an apartment. You can grow food for your family or yourself. You can grow food to give away to neighbors. You can grow flowers to make a bouquet in your own front yard or in a pot on your porch. You can do it.
So we only have, I think, 0.25 of something, but
Yeah.
we have a section dedicated to this stuff. And the amount of stuff I'm growing is insane.
I watch a lot of homesteaders and a lot of gardeners online, and one of them I follow is Jill from Whispering Willow Farm. She has a book out called Tiny But Mighty Farm, and she literally has 1 acre, and she produces market gardening style for farmers market, does sourdough on farm. I mean, it's amazing how much food you can grow, and especially if you find a niche. I grow enough of a little bit of everything, and my small 0.25 is probably actually my growing space, that there's things that I can preserve that we're still enjoying the garden all year long. It's not all of the produce for my family by any means, but we are getting pieces of the garden incorporated in our meals all year long from that little space.
That actually sparks, I want to have you back on the podcast because I am scared of canning. I'm really good at like
It's
so much,
terrifying
but
when you first start.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
everybody has to start water bath. Yep, we'll do that again, but in different way. I'm getting really into fermenting this year. I'm excited about fermenting for gut health. I'm trying out a new cucumber kimchi this year. Instead of cabbage, it's a cucumber kimchi. I love to cook. That part is super fun. But yeah, so many garden things we could talk about. So many. And
no,
it's so fun
I
to
know.
preserve it.
So jump into the rapid fire. These are just silly questions. What is your favorite vegetable ever to grow?
It's not gonna be a vegetable, it's a fruit. I'll pick tomatoes all day long over everything. It's my favorite everything.
Underrated crop.
Herbs. People do not grow enough herbs. The amount of flavor and pack in a punch and change in a culinary side, or in addition to bland food like cabbage or something, to make something that's a poverty food, I guess you could say. You can fancy anything up with herbs.
This next question, what's your favorite herb?
Basil, I'm a caprese salad girl all the way. Tulsi basil, yeah, I make sweet tea with Tulsi basil. I have a tea garden too, orange mint and apple mint, and I add my Tulsi basil to my sweet tea in the summer, and Tulsi lemonade is amazing too. And
Okay.
lemonade and steeping it with Tulsi is amazing. Yeah, and it's got such great health benefits.
What was the other one? Orange mint, and then you said another one?
Orange mint, apple mint,
Oh, wow.
another great tea win if you're growing. Are you growing raspberries in your garden?
I no, I have 3 blueberry bushes and a
Okay.
blackberry.
Well, if you ever get around to raspberry bushes, I love raspberry leaf tea. It's one of my favorite teas and it's really good for
Oh,
females. And you
what?
literally pick the leaves off of your raspberry bushes as they're just baby green leaves. And I keep a window screen in my garage. So during the summertime, I set it up on a sawhorse in my garage. And as I cut herbs in the garden, because I can't afford a freeze dryer yet, I set the screen up in my garage and I lay my herbs. I'll lay a handful of basil or a handful of chives because the more you
Yeah.
cut your herbs, the faster they grow. I leave them on a screen in my garage until they're dry and I crumble them up and stick them in a mason jar. And I do the same thing with my raspberry leaves for tea. I'll do Tulsi basil. That way, I've constantly got jars that I'm adding dried to that you can mix and make your teas as you want to go. That's all it is.
Really love that. I love that tea. Like, it's one of my favorite ones.
Well, my sister-in-law, one of the ones that I just did a garden tower for, I'm a huge green stalk
Yeah.
fan. She's a giant tea drinker. One entire green stalk of all chamomile, apple
Yes.
mint, orange mint, spearmint,
Oh,
just for a basic tea garden that she can go out there at any time. It's fun.
herb because now I'm wanting some like
Now you need a raspberry bush.
tomatoes or peppers.
Oh, tomatoes, hands down. But I do love my husband, so I'll say 50.
A ghost one. Have you ever done that one for
Oh, yeah, we've grown Carolina Reapers. I have an entire jar of dried Carolina Reapers. No one will ever touch them. They don't need to exist. We have them because it makes my husband happy.
Okay, what's one plant everyone should grow?
A flower of some kind. Grow a flower. Flowers just make people happy, and when you see a flower bloom, it just renews your spirit. Grow a flower and then give it away.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, this is another rapid fire. One gardening tool you can't live without.
I hear people say this all the time, and I don't have one. My hands are my garden tool I can't live without. I am not a gadget girl. I lose things, I break things. I'm a squirrel. I should not have nice things. I leave them out in the garden all the time.
Yeah.
I am a huge believer in the way, on the way in the garden. If it is in the way, on the way, you will see it. You will not forget it. You will remember. So I leave my
Okay.
shovels, my rakes, my spades, my glove, everything is in the way, on the way. I'd say my hands and mulch. Those are my 2 power horses in the garden are my hands and I mean, everybody needs a good little set of clippers and some twine
Yeah.
goes a long way, trellising something up. But I am not a fancy you can grow with some cinder blocks and some dirt that you have. I think that is one of the biggest intimidating things with new gardeners is they think they need all of these different things, and you don't. You need some dirt, some sunshine, some water, and some love. That's what you need.
So, what would be your favorite thing to harvest?
My
Okay.
blueberry bushes right now are rocking. Every year for Mother's Day, my boys, we've always done a yard project. I have peach trees that are 8 Mother's Days ago, and I have blueberry bushes that were 5 Mother's Days. Every year when I harvest things, I get to remember Mother's Days in the garden with my kids, which is one of my favorites. My blueberry bushes are busting at the seams right now. My son made protein waffles before going to a catching gig the other morning and he was like, "These would just be better with blueberries." And I went out to the garden and I picked that child an entire pint of blueberries for his breakfast. And that just feels so fantastic. It's so rewarding. And you know how expensive berries are? They're
Oh,
outrageous.
no.
And my children
Yes.
eat a ridiculous amount of them and they're so expensive. And for me to go pick blueberries and take that one thing off my grocery list, I'm like, we're winning, girl. We are winning.
Yeah. Okay. What about if you could describe your perfect summer morning? What would that look like?
Oh, waking up with coffee already made. I want my kids to still be sleeping because they like to talk to me really early in the morning, and I'm not a morning person, so I want them sleeping for a little bit. My husband always makes my coffee in the morning, which is my love language, and I make a cup of coffee and I walk straight out to the garden almost every morning in my jammies and flip-flops, and I usually just go out there and talk to the plants. I know that sounds crazy, but it's how I center myself every day. It's how I get started. It's how I say my blessings. It's how I work out problems in my head and stresses in my head. It's how I perk myself up for whoever I need to serve that day in whatever way. I learn so much out there. I'm constantly fascinated. Something is always changing. So I feel like it keeps me growing as a human being, and it's just a great way to start the day. That's my perfect morning is picking something to eat, then coming inside, and my boys like to ask what's for dinner first thing in the morning. Food is big in our house. So we plan out a meal for the day, and I'd say watch one of my kids' baseball games. That's probably my favorite summer morning.
It that kinda coincides with this, but what's bringing you the most joy right now in this current season?
Just growing stuff. I try to challenge myself every year as a gardener. I'm gonna grow this year. I've never done this year. Conquering the sunflower thing was a thing for me. Growing a big patch of sunflowers for my dad this year was a big thing. My mom loves lima beans. Why have I never grown my mother lima beans? It's her favorite thing. So this year I'm trying to be very intentional because there's such a joy that comes from giving things away from the garden. I'm growing lima beans for my mama this year, and I'm growing my girlfriend Angie. I did all my plant stuff at the corner shop. Angie does all the beautiful wreaths. If you need a local wreath made, shout out Angie's Store Decor. I'm growing her some purple whole peas this year because those are her favorite. I'm growing an entire raised bed of purple whole peas for Angie. I'm growing cut flowers this year for the specific purpose of random acts of kindness because I think the world needs more of that right now. That was my joy this year. Intentional cutting flowers to spread joy and to plant vegetables for people who I know will truly feel the love when they eat them. So that's what I'm doing this year. It brings me
Allison,
so much joy.
that is so
I will tell you, I have the luxury of time now that I did not have when I was a busy mom with 2 little kids at home. So I feel very blessed to have this knowledge and this place in my life and this time to open up
yeah,
and have that knowledge to share because it's been a gift that got me through motherhood. The garden got me through it's gotten me through a lot. Yeah. I mean, I'm still mothering, don't get me wrong. But yeah, the garden for the people that it does the things for, the garden is very much a sense of therapy.
it really is. Alright, so we have one final question. You ready for it?
I'm here
If you
for
could
it.
grow 3 things, just 3 for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Tomatoes, cucumbers. I love a cucumber. I've loved a cucumber since I was a little girl. Look, cucumbers
Okay.
remind me of eating cucumbers in the garden with my dad and my grandma when I was little. That's what I would grab off the vine, even more so than a tomato. I fell in love even more with tomatoes when I lived in Italy. Peaches, I haven't been able to tackle. I've got 5 peach trees, and I think I've harvested 1 decent peach in 8 years of growing them. I refuse to spray them, and I won't do it, and the pests and the frost, if I could learn how to grow peaches, I'd be the happiest gardener ever. But they kill me. They disappoint me every year.
Oh, fun. Yeah,
Those
actually
would be
look
my 3, and I think those are the 3 things that taste like summer to me, which is my favorite time of year. So I think those 3 things are flowers, I could grow a million, but food-wise, those would be my top 3, food-wise, for sure.
perfect. Allison, I had so much fun. So many rabbit holes about questions, so we'll have to come back and do more topics because there's just so much we can go.
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful for you as a person that you are a resource for people in this community. You bring so
Thanks.
much joy just to talk to you. You just make me so happy. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with our listeners. Thank you for loving on this community the way you do. I do remember when I first met you, I think you're referred to as the mayor of Huntersville because I feel like you know a lot.
Just because I grew up here, I
Oh,
love
well,
it here. I love Huntersville very much so.
if people are interested in following along on your journey, because you've been sharing a lot of great things on your Instagram about education for
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram or on Facebook as the Blue Family Farm Table. and I'm Allison Fickling, so I'm on that platform as well. And then you can either message me on there to set up a consult. My cell phone number, I believe, is on both of those at 704-626-0097. And you can send me a text if you're local. I don't respond to email really well. I will say that. I'm in the garden and I'm a tech savvy person. Check email. I respond really well to text or calls. Just let me know. And as long as you're a little flexible in your schedule, we'll get a time set up and I'll come see what's going on. And we can start planning from there. And whether you choose to do the work yourself or need me to help you in the garden, we can figure that out. But I just want people to know it's very affordable. Number one, $30, that just pays my time to come out and be able to have enough time to discuss with you so that you feel like you're leaving with something. And then you obviously have a drawn up plan afterwards. I don't want people to feel like having someone help them in the garden is not approachable for everybody because everybody should be able to grow their own food and have access to fresh food. So I try to keep it manageable. Send me a message on Instagram or on Facebook or via telephone, and we'll find out what you need and how best we can get started.
Perfect. Cool. And I will put everything that you said in the show notes below so people can scan, click it, and that way they can find you directly.
And
But
please go and visit my Instagram. It's ten years old. So if you like to see different seasonal fun projects, succulent wise or garden wise, different flowers I've tried and different things that have failed over the years, you can use my Instagram as kind of like a Huntersville growing zone guide because you can see what I've been doing in every season here. If
yeah,
you like lots of plant pictures and good little garden tips, it is a good place to go back through the seasons and see what was applicable to people in our area at that time.
that's awesome. That's a great resource. Thank you so much, Allison. I hope you
Thanks
have a
for having me. Thank you.
so much for joining me. I'm so excited to continue chatting in the future too.
Share the love, share the flowers, share the love of growing stuff, and everybody happy growing. I'll see you in the garden. Good morning, friends. We're going to do a quick little June garden tour of what's going on in the Blue Family Farm Table Kitchen Gardens. We're going to try to make this hot flash. So this is our sweet pepper bed, and we've got some cucumbers trellising up the sides. There's some purple basil in there mixed with some asters. I always overplant and plant way too close together, but the more the merrier is what I like to say, and peppers like to hold a hand. So this is our sweet pepper bed with cucumbers trellising at the end. We have got our hot pepper bed with our full crop of purple whole peas that'll be coming out right about the time those peppers are harvested. Those are looking so healthy. Check out the tomatillos coming out of the side here. Love watching these guys bloom up. They're so fun, like little balloons. Our green stalk is growing everything from cucumbers to tomatoes to green beans and flowers. I've got trellises coming out the backside to hold up those huge tomatoes. We put in a cutting garden bed this year with all of our Lysianthus plugs specifically for cutting flowers. We've got our row of slicing tomatoes there, along with our row of canning paste tomatoes. It goes out to our squash and pumpkin watermelon food forest, centered by our fig tree. Peach trees and muscadine grapes lined with blueberry bushes along the fence line. We have a permanent perennial bed with asparagus and strawberries. I always fill in with some radish and carrots. Added our new blackberry trellis this year with some cantaloupe going up the other side. Our raspberry bushes are tucked back there by the fence. Another raised bed full of cutting flowers. Most of this is flowers and herbs. And we'll start on this raised bed. This raised bed area was the very first bed I installed on the property, and it started with just this one square in the center, which now you can see all the little sunflowers sprouting up. That is the pollinator flower garden in the middle. I do lots of seed experiments there, some celosia, but most of that whole center area is going to be full of sunflowers and zinnias soon. This is our potato patch. You can see this year we're getting our first blooms. Those guys have been eaten off by something. First year growing our potatoes here, so those are all coming up. All of these blocks have been lined with herbs for years, so those herbs come back. Everything from mint and thyme and tarragon, oregano. So chives, I've got these guys tucked in here. Cucumbers growing up a trellis with our Lysiatris that's blooming now. And we've got some more flowers. Gotta have flowers to encourage pollinators. Our dahlias are going crazy. I've got some open space in this bed here. This is basil and flowers. I'm letting a Napa cabbage left over from fall go to seed for a trap plant. So I'll be adding more green beans through this area. Some cilantro going to seed. Always save that. So you've got coriander. Our elderberry bush here that caps out the end of this bed. We've got lots of green beans everywhere. Green beans coming in. Pop those green beans in for that 65-day harvest. You can have them going all summer long. So different stages. There's lima beans here, some yarrow ready to go in the ground, more marigolds, asters, more green beans, strawberries, some more cilantro going to seed, basil. We've got some poblano peppers from Mike with Green Thumb's Garden. He starts the best pepper starts. So grabbed one of his poblanos this year. I've got a Tabasco that's catching up and a Boquon, the very first original native chili pepper that most chili peppers come from. These guys are so fun, super hot. Eggplants that are ready and more eggplants that are coming. Hey guys. And so this is our in-ground bed.
I truly hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you are on social media, you can follow me at Be Well and Ground. And if you happen to be a local in the Lake Norman area, come take a class with me. I teach prenatal, toddler, and adult yoga, and I would love to see you guys on the mat. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.